Everyone say.
Chief Illini walks off the court for the last time at the University of Illinois. You just heard 16,000 people unanimously say the word Chief. It is an 81-year-old tradition, started in 1926. And all the fans there started singing Hail to the Orange, Hail to the Blue, which is the school's alma mater song. That was the final performance of Chief Illini, who's been there for basketball games and for football games for the last 80-plus years. It is a year of change in Champaign, especially in the athletic department. Their public address announcer, whom you heard at one point there, his name is Jim Shepard. He's been calling football and men's basketball games in Champaign for 22 years. This will be his final year at Illinois as well. Another look at the emotions on the faces of fans, cheerleaders, students, as they see a staple of their program come to its final close.
Yes, they fought savagely. For they were a primitive people, and self-preservation is a primitive instinct.
They say history is written by the winners. And that's surely the case when it comes to the way Native Americans have been portrayed in the movies. Now, we all know that every movie needs a villain, but during the last 100 years, more than 4,000 movies have cast Indians in that role, depicting them as bloodthirsty savages.
Scenes of peaceful wagon trains being attacked by marauding Indians were common plot devices in Westerns.
I grew up at a time when John Ford and John Wayne and Randolph Scott et al. Were massacring Indians with single shots.
Turn around, Dick.
That was in the late 40s. And I was in elementary school in Vallejo, California. Because of those movies, my brother and I were the only Indians in the neighborhood and in town and in school. We had to fight our way out of those theaters.
Well, as children, that's who we saw. So we never saw our own image in its reality. And so we had to create our own image. From the time we were growing up, to be strong and proud of who we were was a joke. You couldn't do it.
Indian, run their dot-gum, dot-blasted sheep over our land just like they owned it. Why don't they stay on the reservation where they belong?
My son asked me this one time. He goes, "Where are the Indians, Mom? Why don't they have them in this movie?" And I was like, well, maybe that's when they put us on the res.
Motion pictures in the United States have been made for white audiences to make money and to portray history. I don't think it's fair to say just to make money, but it is fair to say that the white audience has predominated.
The white men of the West cannot and will not recognize the testimony of those Indians who slaughtered, massacred, and ambushed our parents.
Tribes of the North beat at River Rock. Let's forever wipe out all white.
Well, I think that the bottom line is they weren't looking for an accurate portrayal. They weren't trying to tell a Native American story. They were trying to tell a Euro-American story.
Man doesn't forget easily when his wife and kids were butchered.
Cheyenne, what?
Cheyenne, Apache, Blackfoot Sioux, they're vicious killers, all of them, ain't even human.
Not only was the portrayal of the Native American unrealistically negative, but the portrayal of the white man was often unrealistically positive.
Ultimately, you have some contest between the white guy, who is the exemplar of the rugged frontiersman on the one hand, and Indians on the other. The white guy beats him every time. He's better at being Indian than they are. There's nothing a white man's not better at being than an Indian.
Horrifying pages in the bloody annals of Indian warfare. A vivid recreation, a day when a lost patrol found the garrison of Fort Bowie slaughtered to the last man.
Tomahawk Trail is a classic Western formula. It talks about Indian ferocity. It talks about Apache atrocities. It shows essentially the American army and American settlers outnumbered and threatened by overwhelming force of Native Americans.
Never have so few so bitterly the victims of Apache savages.
It's just the opposite. Historically, we're talking about the Native Americans were overwhelmed by white population and settlement. But for the sake of the motion picture, and unfortunately to perpetuate the image of the savage Native American, history is turned around and modified to suit the formula.
Have their haircut, Brian. You're not involved.
How can you speak so unpeacefully?
I knew these folks played the trail before. This is how my parents died. I was scouting.
Thanks to Hollywood, this country refuses to face what happened to Indian people.
It takes a blue coat to make a white man a soldier. But a Cheyenne is a soldier from the first slap on his butt. War is his life. He's fierce, he's smart, and he's meaner than Sid.
The scouts of Indians made you like your mother. Got them to the same means. Killing.
By ignoring the Indians and what we have to say, you are dooming your own country. Because there is a saying, a nation that does not know its history has no future.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so we have 24 people are logged in. That's great. And so we need to go to the cyber campus and make sure we don't forget to do attendance, and go to American history and smart attendance, and week 1 add and smart attendance, and the start, and this number is 105. 105 is the number to enter in smart attendance. So let me see if I can go back to the chat and enter it 105. And there you go. Everybody's got that done. And okay. And there's I want to try to use all of the capabilities that Zoom has made available. Zoom in a lot of ways is a great addition because like I said, I think it makes it easier in some ways to organize our classes, to do things. So I used to do a lot of photocopying and distributing paper in this class. And it was a bit of a challenge to get that all organized. And what I want to do now is try to get us set up for an exercise that we'll do next class about Christopher Columbus and the stereotypes and images we have regarding Christopher Columbus. And I see the smart attendance takes 10 minutes of time to go through. What I want to do now is show you let me see, make sure I get to the right file folder here and make sure that we cover some current events to show how all of this topic is very significant. The exercise we're doing on starting, or at least getting organized today and then going into next week, will be focusing on putting Christopher Columbus on trial. So here we see, here's let me see if I can find this. Just a second, because there's two files that I need to open up here. And let's see if I can find it. And yeah, let me one second here. Find that here. Let me see here. Go here. And see, yeah, Discovering Columbus. Okay, so let me go back to share screen and show you this file that I showed you at the last class. This is an exercise produced by the same, the students of Howard Zinn. Howard Zinn had many, many students, and these exercises were created to accompany using people's history of the United States. And the first chapter focuses on the European colonization. I almost said discovery. I'm not supposed to say discovery. The European colonization of North and South America. Of course, it was a discovery for the European. Well, you know, it depends on how you define European, because as I say this, of course, we all know that, at least in the United States, that there was Europe, there were people coming from Europe to what was called North America long before Christopher Columbus came there. The Vikings, the Norsemen from Scandinavia, what is today Scandinavia, established settlements hundreds of years before Columbus arrived. They established settlements in what's Greenland and Canada along the Atlantic coast, of course, centuries, maybe 3 or 4 centuries before Columbus arrived. But those settlements disappeared. And there's still much debate about what happened to them. There is also, during the thousands of years earlier, during the Ice Age, when there was ice covering much of the northern half of the hemisphere, northern part of the Earth, that people were walking and migrating across the ice from what is today Europe to America, while they were following the ocean life that they were hunting and eating. You know, the seals and the whales. And so we know that was happening thousands of years. But of course, in modern history, typically, in fact, the way American students are taught that the modern period starts is about the beginning of the 16th century, around the time when Columbus, quote unquote, discovers Hispaniola, North and South America. And that is not coincidental, that the modern period, as historians talk about, begins about 1500. That's when Columbus colonizes Hispaniola. And I think I have a map here. Yeah, maybe this. Let me see if I can show you this. I keep talking about Hispaniola. This is Hispaniola, right? This is the island that Christopher Columbus landed on. And he was, of course, trying to find a way to India, and without expecting to land here, obviously. And so when he landed here, he thought he was in India or close to India. So he named the people that are living here the Indians, because he thought he was in India, but he wasn't, of course. And this area is still called the West Indies. These islands, the West Indies, because of Columbus thinking that he had mistakenly, of course, that he had discovered, he had found another route to India. And so we covered at the last class some of the controversy regarding what happened in North or South America, and that the portrayal of Columbus is very romantically portrayed to American students today. So here, again, I showed you this at the last class. This is a picture from a typical school book used to teach American children about the significance of Christopher Columbus finding North and South America. He's a hero, right? He's almost a divine figure. And at the same time, we have reports that were also coming out at the same time, about the same time, of what Columbus's people were actually doing. Columbus's crew on his ships were actually doing in Hispaniola. And so it wasn't necessarily a secret about what Columbus was doing. But as we talked about at the previous class, right, people have a tendency to make themselves perceive a world in a way that makes them feel good about doing whatever it is they want to do. We call that motivated reasoning, self-serving perception. So, and that includes not seeing what you don't want to see. So ignoring this, because of course there's lots of money to be made, lots of wealth, lots of land, lots of resources. And for ambitious Europeans who want to exploit that land and exploit these people who are foreigners, who are aliens to them, there's a strong incentive for many, not all, not this person, not Theodore de Bry, and also Spaniards who are Spanish priests and monks in the Catholic Church who are reporting about the terrible things were going on. Still, their general tendency was for people to exploit these resources and to make themselves ignore the bad things being done to get access to those resources. And you know, as I told you, from my background, I'm a political science professor, right? So, and I really focus on power and international relations. So the exploitation of these people and the abuse of these people is partly a consequence of the fact that compared to the Europeans, they were very, very, very weak in power capability. And they had iron weapons, they had gunpowder. You don't see guns here, but they had gunpowder. They brought horses. The Spaniards brought horses to North and South America. What we call the Indians, the native peoples in North and South America, they did not have horses. Horses were brought by the Spaniards, and so the Spaniards used those horses as cavalry, as mounted soldiers, and just decimated these people. I mean, in terms of the reports we have about how the Spanish, when moved to Latin America, into the what we call South America, Spanish conquistadors is the Spanish term, wearing armor and having iron weapons and gunpowder and horses. They had no fear of challenging Indian forces, Indian soldiers, many times their size. And so the point I'm trying to make is that there were so many resources for making so much money and advancing oneself in terms of wealth and prosperity, while the obstacles they were facing were so weak, so comparatively weak, it was irresistible to many people to do whatever they wanted to do to take away these resources by expelling these people, by enslaving these people, to take their land, to make them work as labor. To work, because you need people to work the land, you need people to farm the land, you need people to work in the mines, to mine silver and gold. The Spanish conquistadors and first discoverers are a very tiny minority of people, and so they wanted to use and exploit the Indians to do that, to make them work as workers on the land to grow profitable crops like tobacco and cotton and all of those items, and also to work in the mines to get the silver and the gold, and to do it as cheaply as possible. And of course, when those Indian reserves of labor, of enslaved labor, were depleted because of, as I mentioned, like 90% of the populations of these places died from disease, right? Or they ran away, or they intermarried. Like, you see these pictures, these people, of course, they might well get related to a man or a woman, particularly a man, and they would breed and make babies, and it would be hard to necessarily identify what an Indian person was, because they could integrate or assimilate in terms of blood, facial skin color into the population more readily than Africans. So Africans were also desirable for a number of reasons as enslaved labor, because the African chiefs were willing to sell them as labor that the Europeans wanted. They had institutions of slavery in Africa. And also, they were easier to identify. You could identify a Black person, even if that Black person has some white genetic background. They still noticeably have darker skin, unless that genetic mixing occurs over a few generations. It takes a few generations. I mean, even Barack Obama, for example, everyone knows that President Barack Obama of the United States is Black, but his mother was white. And his father was an aristocratic prince from a Kenyan tribe. So studying in the United States at a university in the United States, where he met his mother, who was white. So Barack Obama is half white, but obviously he's still an African American because of his skin color and his hair texture. So they were more identifiable, and they couldn't run away, they couldn't assimilate. So. Okay, that 10 minutes has passed, but keep in mind, that's always the background, that people have a tendency to perceive the world in self-serving ways. I want to feel good about whatever it is I do, whatever it is I want to do. I want to justify it to myself, and I want to justify it to you. And so, of course, many justifications will arise that these people are savages, Indians are savages, that they're backward, that they're obstacles to progress. That white civilization, European civilization, is good because it brings civilization, it brings Christianity, it brings, created the greatest country in the world if you're an American nationalist, the United States, right? So this is not just a history lesson, as we were talking about in previous classes, right? That we see there is much discussion these days about how we understand history, and how that relates to our understanding of history. So here you see, let me share this screen here. And so go to share screen, and we go here. And here's a report from just a few days ago about Proud Boys are one of these far-right authoritarian, informal civil society organizations that are been portrayed as authoritarian populists, or a potential future fascist elite in the United States, along with the 3%ers and the Oath Keepers. They were heavily represented at the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Proud Boys members. It's a gang. It's an informal group. And it says here, this is from just a couple weeks ago, Proud Boys flocked to pro-Columbus statue rally in Little Italy as far-right ups profile. So Little Italy is a neighborhood in Chicago where Italians settled over 100 years ago and built restaurants and homes. And that becomes a tourist destination where you can go to get, Italian food and so on. Just like American cities have Koreatown or Chinatown, Little Italy is a district in that area where there was historically a heavy Italian settlement when immigrating to the United States from Italy. And a year after, it says here, this is from a Chicago newspaper, a year after the Christopher Columbus statue at Regal Park was yanked down amid mounting protests Hundreds rallied at the same spot in the heart of Little Italy last month to demand the city restore the monument to the explorer and two others. And it goes on here. So this is the statue that was torn down. There you see Christopher Columbus. This is the statue that was torn down after the George Floyd murder by the police in Minneapolis, the black man who was arrested and died while being force being used against him by the police. It sparked nationwide and worldwide protests in other places, like in the United Kingdom in particular. And in the midst of those protests that began last spring in 2020, there were moves to tear down these statues that are glorifying colonizers and imperialists and colonizers. And so you see Christopher Columbus in heroic format. It says here, Christopher Columbus in Regal Park before it was removed. It was cast in Rome in 1893 for the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. And of course, for many Italians who desperately seek to integrate and assimilate historically into the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant core culture that founded the United States, they point to their contribution as Italians to this great country, the United States of America, and they point to examples of these great contributors to this great history of America to create this great country, Christopher Columbus. And they even adopted a holiday. So October 11, a little over a month from now, is Columbus Day. It's Columbus Day in the United States, and it's a holiday in many states where to commemorate Christopher Columbus. And of course, I went to Ohio State University, which is located in Columbus, Ohio. There are many towns and cities named Columbus in the United States, named after this person. And this statue was yanked down in the midst of the protests following the George Floyd killing. And so, and of course, this causes a conflict with Italians who are conservative populists who might well support Trump. And this is described, this interview with the Proud Boys leader who converged at the Italian Unity Day event in August of this year. We went out to support our Italian brothers and other Italians who feel wronged by the tearing down of their statue, Delatorre said in a statement. Today it's Columbus. Tomorrow they'll attack Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who of course is one of the leaders of the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s in the United States to end racial segregation in the United States and empower Black people in substance instead of just on paper. And so I won't go through the whole article here. I just wanted to highlight that these are controversial topics, right? These are controversial issues. And so here you see the supporters for Trump demonstrating a year early in 2020 after the presidential election, which happened in, I think it was early November of that year, claiming that Trump was claiming that the election was stolen from him. And as I said, this led to the January 6th protests that the Proud Boys members were involved with, claiming that the election had been fraudulently stolen from Trump, and that January 6th protesters, insurrectionists led by the Proud Boys, the 3%ers, the Oath Keepers, attacked the US Congress to try to make the US Congress not declare officially Joe Biden the winner of the presidential election. So this is current events in the United States today. And so we want to put Christopher Columbus on trial in our class. We're going to put Christopher Columbus on trial. And so I think smart attendance has stopped. So I now know who is here. And what does that mean when I press input? Okay, so I know who's here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign you to 5 different groups. And let's see how, I've never done this before. Let's see how this works here. We go to stop share, and I'm going to assign you to 5 different groups. And randomly assign you, and we will create the groups. And I think you can share my screen, right? You can see my screen. And so here are the 5 different groups. And I'm now going to open all of these. Well, when I open all of these groups, I'm going to send each of the members of the group a 1-page file in which you are going to be assigned to play individual actors in Columbus's campaign to colonize Hispaniola. And so let me remove this. So again, you're seeing this. This is, we're going to put Columbus on trial. The indictment. Oh, that's of Columbus. So the people, that's us, that's the world versus Columbus and everyone else. And so there's five different group that we're putting, 5 different actors who we're putting on trial. And we're going to assign you each to be players in that trial. And we're going to decide who is most guilty for the crimes that happened under Christopher Columbus when he colonized Hispaniola. And the first group, the first actor is, of course, Christopher Columbus. The indictment. You are charged with mistreatment and murder of thousands of perhaps millions of Taino Indians. As I told you, on Hispaniola, 95, those people basically vanished. We don't know how many people live there. Estimates range from 300,000 to 3 million people. And within 100 years of Columbus's arrival, they're gone. Gone. So, and so it says here, your first act in the lands you discovered, quote unquote, was to take possession of another people's territory in the name of an empire thousands of miles away, because of course, Christopher Columbus was from Genoa. There was no Italy at the time. Italy, what we call Italy, was divided into different smaller states. And he was from Genoa, but he was in service to King and Queen Isabella and Ferdinand of Spain. So he was working for the Spanish. And from the very beginning of your time in the Indies, you kidnapped Taino Indians. Even when they attempted to escape, making clear that they wanted to leave, you refused to release them. Your journal, because you kept a diary, right, shows that your only wish in the Indies was to find gold. The only reason you showed any kindness to the Tainos on your first trip, because you went back 3 times. Eventually, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella made you governor of Hispaniola. So you went back more than once. It states here, your journal shows that you, your journal shows that you only wish in the Indies was to find gold. The only reason you showed any kindness to the Tainos on your first trips was so they would agree to show you the source of their gold. On your second voyage to the Indies, you ordered your men to round up the Tainos and had over 500 shipped to Spain as slaves. You told your men to help themselves to the remaining Taino captives, which they did. This act alone killed 700 Tainos. That's the name of the Indians, also called Caribs. That's where we get the name Caribbean from, right? In 1495, you started the policy of forcing Tainos aged 14 or older to collect gold for you. Those who didn't return every 3 months with the amount of gold you demanded were punished by having their hands chopped off. You ordered your men to spread terror among the Tainos when there was rumor of resistance. The list goes on. When you arrived on Hispaniola, there may have been as many as 1 million or even 3 million Tainos on the island. According to one Spanish priest, by 1542, there were 200 Tainos left. There was no one to blame but you. You were admiral, you were viceroy of the king and queen, you were governor of the island. Are you the most guilty for what happened to the Tainos Indians? And then there's Columbus' men, who also participated. You are charged with mistreatment, murder of thousands, maybe perhaps millions of Taino Indians. Of course, Columbus could not have done what he did unless his 50 or 60 men on the Pinta, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria ships had not helped him. Without you, Columbus' order to enslave and kill the Tainos would have been empty words. There is no evidence that Columbus personally ordered, captured slaves, or killed anyone with his own hands. You are the ones responsible for the enslavement of the first Indians, then thousands of Taino Indians. You did the dirty work. You raped women. You set dogs on infants. You cut the hands of Tainos who didn't deliver enough gold. You whipped Tainos if they didn't work hard enough in the mines. Without you, there were no crimes. You may try to blame your superiors, Columbus or even King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, but because someone orders you to commit a crime does not free you of the blame for committing it. You could have said no. There were Spaniards like the priests Antonio de Montesinos and Bartolome de las Casas, who refused to mistreat Indians and spoke out on their behalf. Why didn't you? Without the soldier, there is no war. Without you, there would have been no genocide. Third, of course, is King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. You are charged with the mistreatment and murder of thousands, perhaps millions of Taino Indians. Without your money, Columbus couldn't have launched his plan to find the East Indies by sailing west. Without you, he was an unemployed sailor. You hired him to discover and claim new lands. Thus, you are guilty of conspiracy to steal the territory of people you didn't even know, who had never bothered to harm you. When Columbus returned after his first voyage with several Indian captives, you rewarded him, you became guilty of kidnapping. You could have ordered Columbus to stop kidnapping Indians. You could have punished him for his illegal act, but not doing anything to stop Columbus and his men, you legalized every crime they committed. In his first letter to you, Columbus wrote that the Indians would make excellent slaves. Right away, you could have ordered him to take no slaves. You did no such thing, and thus became accomplices in all future slave trading. True, after a while, you discouraged Columbus from enslaving people. They mostly died anyway. But you never punished him for these crimes, which killed hundreds of thousands of human beings. Really, you didn't care what Columbus did, as long as you got rich. At times, you would order that the Tainos should be treated humanely, but you took no action to stop the Tainos from being forced to work in the mines. They were slaves in everything but name. Had you wanted the cruelty to stop, you could have ordered all your subjects home, but then you wouldn't have gotten any more gold. And that was what you wanted, right? Because Columbus was unpopular with other Spaniards, you replaced him as governor, but you never punished him for the crimes committed against Tainos when he was governor. And these crimes continued under the next governor. Because you were the bosses and because you paid the bills, you have more guilt than had you been the ones wielding the swords and hangings nooses of Columbus's men. The fourth group are the Tainos, the Caribbean people themselves, the Indians themselves. And again, this highlights how the theme of this, well, let's go on here. Why would they be guilty of anything, you might ask? Why would the Indians living in Hispaniola be guilty of anything? And that's a theme throughout the book, just to get to the point, that social justice only comes to those people who fight for it. You cannot get social justice by simply asking the people in power, the powerful and rich, to please be nice to me and give me my rights. You have to fight for it. You have to organize, you have to resist, you have to struggle. The world changes through struggle. You have to fight for your rights, which means you have to organize and you have to resist. For example, did women get the right to vote because men suddenly felt bad about women not having the right to vote? No, women had to organize and fight for that right to vote. All right, and that's why we're putting the Tainos on trial. While you are the victims of this crime, you are also guilty of committing it. You failed to fight back against the Spaniards. This meant that you brought the fate of slavery and death upon yourselves. From the very beginning, you must have known that Columbus meant to do what Columbus meant to do. He took Taino captives from other islands and held them against their will. He claimed your land as his own. He was interested only in finding gold. When your people were cut by Spaniard swords, Columbus and his men showed no concern. All this you must have known. Tragically, you let this greedy, violent man get away so he could return. On his next trip, however, he brought 17 ships, not 3, 17 ships, in between 1,200 and 1,500 men, all heavily armed. You allowed, even invited this invasion. Foolishly, your cacique leader, Coanabo, killed the 39 men Columbus left behind. Why didn't Coanabo and the Tainos kill all the Spaniards, including Columbus, before they had a chance to return to Spain? Imagine the different outcome had the Tainos been smart enough to stop Columbus before he could launch the invasion. Who knows why the Tainos of Hispaniola did not unite to throw out all the Spaniards? Had Tainos worked together, they might have even beaten the Spaniards even after Columbus arrived. After all, the Spaniards numbered fewer than 2,000 men. Tainos numbered in the hundreds of thousands, possibly even as many as 3 million. However, as a result of this Taino failure, all the native peoples of the Americas would suffer. or suffered. And finally, the system of empire. So this gets complicated because that's not a person or group of people. You are not a person, but a system. We like to blame crimes on people, but in this case, the real criminal is not human. True Columbus men did the killing. Columbus gave the orders and King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella paid the bills and took the profits. But what made them behave the way they did? Were they born evil and greedy? The real blame lies with a system that values property over people. European society was organized so that an individual had to own property to feel secure. The more property one owned, the more security, the more control over one's destiny. There was no security without private ownership of property. If you were poor, you could starve. The Tainos were not perfect, but they had no poor and no one starved. Indians commented that Europeans' love of gold was like a disease. In fact, this attitude was a product of a disease system. In order to get more wealth, Columbus and his men took Tainos as slaves, terrorized them into searching out gold, and forced them to work on their farms and in their mines. They justified all this by telling themselves that the Tainos weren't Christians, so we can control their land and labor. The European system saw only white Christians as full human beings. It was a life in a system that valued private property, especially gold, and approved of violence against foreigners and non-Christians to get it, and made Columbus and his men enslave and kill. Sane people do not kill hundreds of thousands of other human beings. It was a rotten, insane system that led Columbus and the others to behave the way they did. You, as the representatives of this system, are guilty of the genocide committed against Tainos. As a final test to see who is guilty for the mass murder of the Tainos, ask yourselves these questions. If it had been some other explorer besides Columbus to discover America, would he have let the Tainos keep their land? Would he not have enslaved people? Would he have not made them search for gold and work in the mines? You know the answer. Any European conqueror would have been every bit as bad as Columbus. Why? Because the system of empire was to blame, not any particular individual. So I've broken you up into 5 groups, and I'm going to try to send each of these groups a separate these separate one-page files. Okay. And so group 1, you'll be Columbus. Group 2, you'll be Columbus's men. Group 3, you'll be who's group 3? King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. Group 4, you'll be the Tainos, and group 5, you'll be the system of empire. And of course, you're going to defend yourselves in this trial. You're going to make a statement why you are less guilty or not guilty, or at least less guilty than somebody else among these 5 groups. Okay. So, and then we will select one person before we start next week, next Monday. We will select one person from these groups to be on the jury. I don't know who will be on the groups, but because we want you all to work on this. And then I will randomly select one of these people from each group to be on a 5-member jury to hear your testimony as to why you are not guilty or why you are less guilty than someone else among the other 4 groups. And then the jury will vote and rank who is more guilty than the others. We'll rank them in terms of who is most guilty, next most guilty, and so on, all the way down. Okay, so I'm now going to, what I want to do now is open all the rooms, and I think I can send each of these groups, separate groups, a separate file. So let me open all the rooms. And let's see, and please join the groups. Please join your groups. Please join your groups. Okay, join the groups. Everyone join the groups. And okay, because now what I'm going to try to do, can I do this? Can I send you, I'm going to join the group, each of the groups, and send you each a file. Okay, so I'm going to join, and I'll stop my screen share. Okay, so now I'm going to open the chat. I don't want to open it to everyone. I want to do it group one. Oh, I don't see how. So let me see who's in group one. Is this group one? I think it is. Okay. Okay, I think, and who is in everyone? I think, okay, so I'm going to send you a file. And that file is going to be the Columbus file. And let me find the Columbus file. Okay. And now I'm going to send it. Did you get the file?
Yes.
Okay. And I think when they say everyone, it means everyone in group one and only in group one. Okay. So I want you to study that file and learn and use the information, prepare your defense, your testimonial defense on Monday. Okay. And now I'm going to leave the group and I'm going to go to group two and send them a file. And so let's see here. Close that. Breakout rooms. And I'm going to see, how do I leave? I don't want to, just a second. I want to leave the group. I've got to go to group two. Okay, I'm going to join group two. Okay, this is group two. And now I'm going to send you the Columbus's men file. Okay. And there it goes. So you got the Columbus's men file. So like I said with the other group, please look at that file, study the information, and prepare your verbal testimonial offense that I assume will be face-to-face on Monday in our classroom. But if not, it doesn't matter. We can still do it over Zoom, of course. So prepare your defense. Defend yourselves. Remember, it's an indictment. You're charged with a crime. These indictments, these one-page files, they only highlight the bad things, the bad things, the bad things. They don't cover the good things that you did or the good benefits or results of what you did. You have to provide that. You have to provide an explanation of the good things that your activities, the good effects, the good results, the positive developments that your participation in these activities resulted in. That's not covered in the indictment. That's up to you to explain. Okay. And of course, as typical Western American students, you probably already have heard the good things that Christopher Columbus's exploits created and gave to the Americans in the world. So you can use that. Okay. So let me go to group three and join group three. And group, you are Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. And so let me go to my computer here and find Isabella and Ferdinand. And okay, so there's the indictment of Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. And, you know, they're heroes in Spain today. I think the highest maybe military or civilian order in Spain, you know, in terms of an award that somebody moved me to group, I moved to group 5. So let me go ahead and sign someone to group, what happened? Oh, group 5. So let me join that and chat and send you the system of empire.
Okay.
Let me find the system of empire. Okay. And okay, so you get to be system of empire. And so you got in group the indictment of 5. And so I think we did group 1 and 2 and 3. So you're group 5. And so again, as I said to everyone else, and I think everyone else is hearing me, study that indictment and prepare your defense in class for Monday and make a statement to the class, to the jury that will be hearing your defense. Of course, as I already repeat once more, remember the indictment only covers the bad things that you did or that resulted from your behavior. It doesn't cover or describe the good results that you might claim were a product of Columbus's activities, or the good developments, or anything positive that came out of this. All right, so you should provide that in your defense. Okay, and let me leave group 5 and go to group 4. And group 4 join, and so we go to my computer here and Tainos, and there you go. So Tainos, Indians, you have gotten your indictment. Even though you were the victims, the indictment charges you were morally, ethically obligated to resist and fight. And because you did not resist and fight, because you thought that if you were kind of restrained and moderate, that bad things wouldn't happen. And of course, bad things did happen. And if you had fought and resisted and maybe even destroyed Columbus's expedition, it would have saved the rest of what we call North and South America, or maybe delayed what would happen to them, or at least maybe gave them time to prepare for knowing what was coming from the Europeans. So we'll do this on Monday. And again, I think we'll be face-to-face on Monday. If not, it doesn't matter because Zoom is perfectly useful for this. And I'll choose one of these groups. And so I have to try to make sure, please remember, write down who is in your group. Who are the other members of your group? Because if I sign off, I think I'm going to lose the list of the people that were in the group, although I can go back to the recording and see who was in the groups. Because when we close Zoom, it might, it's not going to save that. But I have the recording, so I can maybe use that to remember who's in the groups. But please, of course, you can communicate with each other. You can talk to each other between now and Monday and prepare your defense and practice. And remember, I'm going to randomly select one person from each of the 5 groups, one person who will then be the jury. And I don't know who will be on that jury yet because it'll be randomly chosen. Okay. And then they will come together and they will vote on who was most guilty, who was less guilty, who was less guilty, who is less guilty. Okay. So any questions? If you have a question, we have 5 minutes left in the class, so you have time to ask that. But yeah, I think that's probably what's going to end up happening. I'm going to have to leave the breakout rooms and leave the room and leave the break. I will, and then I will see breakout rooms, and I'm going to close. Well, I don't have any choice but to close all the groups, I think. All right, so you can see, just to make sure I can see this at the end. Oh, somebody here is not in a group. So let's put them in, see who doesn't, we'll put them in group 2. We'll assign to 2. Okay, so Pyeongchong-woo is now in group 2. And he hasn't joined the group yet, but he might want to. And okay, and so I think that's what's going to happen. Maybe if I don't close the groups, I can keep the groups. I tell you what, I'm not going to close the groups. I'm just going to see if I close and reopen the Zoom, if the 5 groups are kept that way. What we'll see, we'll have to see what happens. So that's the plan, and we just have a few minutes left in the class. So I had an exercise plan. Maybe we'll do that. I'll save that exercise for Monday. It's always better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. So of course I prepared too much to do, but this is our 50-minute class. So we'll do an exercise, but I just wanted to highlight, maybe I can show you on that exercise how there's a move now in the United States to, let me see, to abolish Columbus Day. So Columbus Day this year is October 11, 2021. It's sort of like the day of it for celebrating Italian Americans, at least Italian American pride in America. Just like St. Patrick's Day, which is I think is about March 17, is the day of Irish American pride. And I'm trying to imagine other groups that immigrated forcibly or unforced or voluntarily in the United States. Germans, for example, the end of, I think, October is Oktoberfest. So it's not just one day, it's a few days. They have a big German style fall festival in many cities in the United States. It's all tied up with tourism, you know, to drink beer and eat sausage and celebrate German American heritage. Asian Americans, I don't know. I think there might be some kind of effort to have such a holiday on the West Coast of the United States, but I can't remember. It's not national. But everybody in America knows about St. Patrick's Day and Columbus Day and the German holiday Oktoberfest. Yes, Oktoberfest is the German holiday, Oktoberfest. And then of course there'd be the other moves to establish other, like February is Black History Month in the United States. Over the last few decades, they've established that as a day, and there's a holiday now for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and that same month that I think is an official federal, it is a federal holiday in the United States, so federal workers don't have to work on that day, and that has been controversial. But this effort to get rid of Columbus Day is an ongoing effort and replace it with Indigenous Peoples Day. So you can see this report is from 10 years ago. But the George Floyd protests and reactions against racism and imperialism and colonialism and the racism that emerged to justify that white supremacy, imperialist colonialism, right? That, you know, Black people are inferior, Indian people are inferior. So we, the white Europeans, have the right to rule and dominate this country because we're superior to the people that were living here and the Black people we brought here as slaves. And that claiming that Columbus Day is the most blatant manifestation of that white supremacy orientation. And so to replace it to, so there have been certain states and cities in the United States like San Francisco, which is the reputation of having the most left-wing government. I think they abolished Columbus Day and they replaced it with Indigenous Peoples Day. It's not an official federal holiday, of course, but they replaced Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. Maybe let's see what Wikipedia has to say about Indigenous Peoples Day or Columbus Day. And a 1 minute remaining. Columbus Day. Yeah, it says here, Columbus Day is a holiday. And there you see another romantic portrayal of Christopher Columbus coming to New Sea, blah, 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 blah. And history and controversy. I'm sure it's all described here, the controversy surrounding it. Yes, Davis, California, not San Francisco. The following summer, more than 180 gathered for following. They declared October 12th to be an International Day of Solidarity with Indigenous Peoples. All right, so yeah, Spelman College historian Howard Zinn describes some of the details in his book of how Columbus personally ordered the enslavement and mutilation of the native Arawak people. They're also called Arawaks. Tainos are called Caribs, Arawak, Tainos, all different names for those people living there. Okay, and there you see the video, the portrayal that I showed you in that file. Okay, that's it for today. Any questions? If not, I will close the recording and see you on Monday, okay? Bye.
Oh, Professor?
Yeah?
Next class will be all online to all students?
I don't know. I mean, I was told this week they're all online, but I don't know if the university has announced if next week is. I'll let you know, okay?
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.